Hazard Pay is back on, baby. It's in the third stimulus if you're 19 years or older and made less than $25,000 as an earned income tax credit. But will it be in fourth stimulus? We'll find out next week. Enjoy this throwback video explaining Hazard Pay, how to get it, and how essential workers are defined. Enjoy this overnight LA video about Hazard Pay. Great news. Next week, Nancy Pelosi will be doing a pot bill. Imagine watching Nancy Pelosi talk about pot. If there was ever a time to qualify for hazard pay, it's now. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is LALATE. Hope you're good and safe. This is our afternoon's program that starts at 3:30 with the check, then goes to hazard pay and pot updates, courtesy of the Democratic Party. Then FBUC, and then finally rent. This is part of our 3.5-hour programming block every day here on LALATE. If there was ever a time to subscribe and like to this video, certainly do it right now. Let me get to the incredible details. Nancy Pelosi's top priority next week is a pot bill. You know, she did not get high enough on dealing with chasing a postman. Next, she will go postal on your stash. Well, I just think it's ridiculous. The Temple of Doom's focus is no longer on stimulus, but now on pot. And I just don't think there's enough jokes to even cover this channel with it. And it's actually getting to be a little, I don't know. I want to just cush it all out. But let me get to the details. Well, hazard pay, which was supposed to be coming in a bill later this month into Congress from the Republicans, is now, you know, going up in smoke, ironically. Here's the details. We were told less than a week ago by Steve Mnuchin, Mark Meadows, and all the powers that be in the White House that we're going to see a two-phase second stimulus package. We're going to see phase one with stimulus checks and FPUC. Yeah, and we believe them. That was then. That was this week. Then we were told there was going to be a second phase or third stimulus package later this month after a clean CR is done. Yeah, not the Honda. And at that time, we would see the things that are hard to agree upon as a second stimulus, as a third stimulus package. Well, the things that were easy to agree upon, they couldn't even agree upon that this week. Ironically, as we sit here then, the question is whether or not we're going to ever see hazard pay in another proposal for purposes of legislative action. As I sit here tonight, or this afternoon, I'm very frank with you. Absolutely, categorically not. I don't see any time before this election that you'll see another bill written about hazard pay. I think it's just going to sort of sit there in the Congress and the Senate or the House, and you're never going to see anything else about it. But there is hope that you'll get hazard pay from your state or your city or your private employer, and that's why I'm detailing that today as well. You know, $10,000 from the federal government if you worked in the pandemic, March, February, all the way up to or January, all the way up to the present, based upon $13 an hour that goes on top of your normal benefits that your employer applies for you. If you made $100,000 or less last year, it all sounds so great. That's not happening. It is what Nancy Pelosi put in the HEROES Act, and she introduced it to the Senate. The Senate went nowhere with it, but we had incredible hope and optimism for over a week. As Steve Mnuchin told us, everything else that needs to get done will get done in a package later this month. We had more optimism about it even before then, when Steve Mnuchin and Nancy Pelosi were negotiating about second stimulus for 2 weeks, and every now and then they would talk about words that sort of sound like hazard pay. They would never say the word hazard pay. It's as though it's, you don't say that. Just don't say it. But they would talk about frontline workers. They would talk about fire and rescue and say how it's important to compensate them. So we had some more optimism back then, but now we have literally silence. Yeah, it's just silence. We don't have no comments from Pelosi. We have no comments from Schumer. All we have is don't do anything. don't do anything. And we have the Republicans saying much of nothing. The week started with us being told what they're going to do and told what they're going to do with the third stimulus package later in September. Now they're nowhere to be found. Steve Mnuchin, Larry Kudlow, Mark Meadows, they're simply not available for comment. They've just disappeared off the face of the planet. So what's happening on with Nancy and her bill then, the $10,000 stimulus package? Well, Steny Hoyer and a lot of other Democrats have just had it with her and have reached out to her and had a massive telephonic meeting yesterday saying, hey, Nancy, keep on doing this. We got to get some stimulus packages out. And she said, no, that would be like going on a cheap date. Nothing just surprises me anymore with her. She's calling $1,200 checks a cheap. She's calling $1,200 checks not a cheap date. She's calling waiting around for hazard pay, since February, to get a measly $13 an hour 6 months after you're supposed to get it, not a cheap date. She's calling waiting around for a standalone bill for FPUC extension, as half of her Democrat Party called for, at $600 or $400 a week, and not getting it, and not a cheap date. It's just, boy. Now, Republicans, on the other hand, really don't want to give you a penny when it comes to hazard pay. I don't even think they know what it is. I mean, they literally just don't even mention it. So as we cut to the chase and say, okay, there's no legislative effort for hazard pay happening anytime soon, at least not this weekend, where would the money come from? It would come from your state, your city, and your businesses, and the efforts are picking up right away. So let me get to the incredible news right now as we see it this afternoon. Back on with Kroger. Big unions are starting to protest at more Kroger supermarkets nationally. This is perhaps the most important thing you will hear about hazard pay this month. And I had been telling you about it last month. Unions are going to start telling their workers to walk off the job unless they get hazard pay bonuses. And they've started protests at Kroger and Giant and Whole Foods, and now they're continuing another round. Demonstrators will gather in front of a West Houston Kroger to push for the return of $2 in hazard pay, which they call bump pay, and health insurance, says a new report out today. This report is indicating that this is one of 2 Kroger stores that have failed to continue to pay hazard pay in the midst of the growing COVID-19 virus, in which there's 40,000 new cases a day, but had paid hazard pay in the spring. Who are the protesters? Unions, the most powerful group that can really get you that hazard pay. Houston area Kroger employees will rally this afternoon as members of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union 445. They'll be joined by the Democratic Socialists of Houston and other supporters. Oh, okay. Earlier this summer, Kroger announced it was discontinuing $2 an hour hazard pay. What's going on? Kroger rally comes 10 days after another rally in the area by a hospital union called Unite Here. This is not the only hazard pay protest in the last 24 hours. Martra may grant its employees hazard pay, but some of those have been not happy and saying what's going on. CEO Jeffrey Parker told the Martra board today that the agency is negotiating with another union, the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 732, to try to get additional hazard pay for unionized employees, including bus and rail operators. They said the pay would also go to police officers, but those are not represented by the union. That's also really important. More about that in a second. They want to raise the pay, and it would cover costs for hours of work from March to June, at about $6.4 million, and cost about $7.3 million. If the deal is reached, it would be the latest boost for this. Earlier this year, the agency granted frontline workers $500 hero bonuses. I'm conscious and focused on the incredible work that our frontline staff has been doing during this incredible time, Parker says. The union representative, Britt Durham, says, it may not be what everyone wants, but I think we can come to a reasonable point. I love this. I mean, I adore this. This is really what you need. And let me explain what's so important about it. First, I have always said, and I'm going to continue to say, that the people who are going to get your hazard pay are not me, not Nancy, not Chuck, but your unions. The unions are going to get people hazard pay whether you're in a union or not. As you saw in that interview, the people that were not in a union but are aligned with the union are getting the benefits of the union negotiating for hazard pay. Unions are very organized, and unions have a lot of members, and their job is to ensure that their membership gets what they need. And so nationally across the country, unions have been stepping up and doing an incredible job to get hazard pay. What are they doing? They're mobilizing their employees, and they're understanding their health, their hourly work, and their situations to tell their employees, hey, you can't keep on doing this. You have to give them more money, an additional hourly rate. Remember, the HEROES Act in the House was a certain number of hour, $13 an hour on top of what you normally got. None of the private hazard pay battles are $13 an hour on top of what you got, but they're $3 or $4 or $5 additional. What they want to say is, hey, we're working in a pandemic. You need to compensate us for it. The reason why the battles are heating up is the following. The businesses made a lot of money in the spring when people were out the door waiting to get in, and there were lines for 2 hours to get your groceries, for example. Now there's no longer lines. Now there's no one rushing in to get the stores. Now there's no shortage of food. So those economies of scale have changed. Businesses are no longer making the bonzo type of money they were making in the spring. And while they had a lot of money to spend around and throw bonuses at people, now they say, oh, you know what? We're just not making a lot of money, so we're not paying you a bonus. Well, that's not what hazard pay works upon. Hazard pay works upon the concept of you're working in an environment that's hazardous and that you deserve to be compensated, that your compensation is not based upon how many people are coming to the store, but what the COVID-19 situation is currently. And that's the disconnect. And that's what unions have been so good on lately, is keeping it on focus. As we sit here today and you hear hazard pay, you need to understand that employers generally don't want to pay you hazard pay now because they're not making the type of money they were making in the spring, and they don't see the number of customers in the business. But you need to understand that has nothing to do with the situation. The situation is how many COVID-19 cases are there per day, and are you exposed? Yesterday or the day before, I detailed one protest from one union that indicated that hundreds of the members had died, and tens of thousands had actually contracted COVID-19. That's because they're working in a hazardous work environment. And the employees may not call it hazard pay. They may call it bonus pay. We don't really care if they call it apples or oranges. But the point is very simple, that they need to send out the money, and you need to get it. So what do you do if you're sitting here now at the 9-minute mark and you're wondering, okay, Nancy's not going to give me my $10,000. I'm not getting anything from Congress. Where am I going to get hazard pay from? I worked during the pandemic. What you're likely to get hazard pay from is 1, your state, 2, your local, or 3, your business. First, your state. Your states are all issuing hazard pay for different types of frontline workers. You need to go find it. You need to go look for it. Not everyone qualifies, not everyone can apply, but a lot of them are basically saying that people just don't know about them and have not applied for these programs. They're not widely published. Second, you need to look at your county and city for the same type of program. A lot of them are out there. A lot of them don't stay around very long, and a lot of them are eaten up very quickly. They're diminishing returns. Additionally, you need to stay focused if a new program like that goes live, because it could, on the spur of the moment. I certainly can't cover 50 states in one particular recording or even one channel. Third, and the most important one, which is the one I was detailing today, is the businesses themselves. And I don't mean the name of the business, I mean the genre of the business. Whether it's grocery stores or pharmacies or liquor stores or hardware stores, you need to understand a couple things. One, is there a union out there that covers that type of marketplace, that type of workplace that you're at? If you work in a home improvement store, is there a labor union for home improvement workers? If you work at a plumbing store, or if you're a plumber, is there a plumbers union out there? You need to go find them and align yourself with them. Call up their membership person. Say, hey, are you doing anything about hazard pay? Are you organizing any protests to ensure we get hazard pay? And this is very important, especially if you're an employee. It's more important as an employee than a W-2, because businesses are dependent upon you on a regular basis. And if you say, hey, you're not paying hazard pay for me, we're walking out, then that's a threat that they need to deal with. And that's a threat that unions are doing. Unions want as many people as possible realigned with them. So if you're in a grocery store, but you're not a unionized grocery store, reach out to the grocery union in your area. Next, it sounds very naive, but it's very true, that you need to talk to your fellow employees, because the more people you talk to, the more this gets pushed. If there's 20 or 30, 40 of you in that job, and you all worked in the pandemic, and it's a hazardous work environment, you need to get together and say, hey, boss, we worked really hard in the spring, and we brought you a lot of business, and we risked our lives. We deserve some bonuses. Or else. You figure out how to say it. But that's the focus of hazard pay as we start this afternoon. So will there be a third stimulus bill that has hazard pay in it? As of this afternoon, no. We just don't see that happening. Could it change in the next 24 hours? Sure. Could Mnuchin say something totally different? Sure. Could Mnuchin start negotiating with Pelosi? Sure. But as we sit on a Friday afternoon, I'm not going to tell you that there's going to be a $10,000 hazard pay bill approved by any member of Congress, because it's just not happening. What is happening is state and locals paying. What is happening is that businesses individually are paying. And what is happening is you need to go get that money, and get it soon, because it's a diminishing fund. Also, in the meantime, go to the front channel and hit the subscribe button so you can alert when a new video goes live. We're doing about 7 videos a day, and the situation's changing by the minute, and it's going to really change now, because it's really just a hot mess express once again. And then hit that like button so you, for this video, so the video appears higher in the ranks. Algorithm likes when you like a video, because ultimately you're telling the algorithm that the video helped you, that the video provided you information of what to do and where to do it and how to do it. And it appears before other things like aliens are coming to take your hazard pay. News at 11. With that, stay tuned for more. Coming up next is LWA, FPUC, UI, PUA, and all that wonderful unemployment stuff. As always, stay informed, stay motivated, stay focused, and stay at LA for more.